Hello and welcome to this demo video. Before we get started, I'd just like to explain to you a few things which will relate to all of the basic range spreadsheets. Number one, there is a key on the intro and setup tab of all of the spreadsheets showing what the different color headers mean. The blue headers mean that the cell's formulated, so it's locked and you can't change it. The yellow headers are where you can input data, and occasionally there might be some gray headers, which is just a different kind of data input, but we'll include instructions as and when that happens. The other thing that you can be aware of is there are ways in which you can damage the spreadsheet. So please do take a look at the link where you see this image, which will take you to a web page to show you how to better preserve your spreadsheet. Please feel free to keep a blank version of the spreadsheet somewhere, so that if you do mess up a spreadsheet that you're using, you can in fact just open a new one, a blank one. And some of the spreadsheets only last for a year, and then you've got a blank one to start the following year. So do keep a blank copy as a backup somewhere. And lastly, wherever you see this image, you can click on it. It'll take you back to the store where you purchased this product to see if you've got anything, any more products. One last thing, to see a demo video, you can click on this on a link that looks like this in order to go to the demo video, but that'll take you to the most recent demo. If in fact we've done upgrades and you're using an older version and you'd like to see the demo relating to your version, then do click on the watch on YouTube link, which will take you to that specific video on YouTube. So I think that's all you need to know. So without further ado, let's move on to this demo video. Thank you. Hello and welcome to the demo video for the hourly rate calculator. This spreadsheet, this demo is going to take a little bit longer because I'm not just going to explain to you how to use the spreadsheet. I'm also going to give you a little bit of introduction as to why you should be using the spreadsheet. Because I've seen so many new business owners in groups and on professional platforms and things like that, asking others how much do they charge for doing a particular job. Or alternatively, asking people how much should that person charge for doing a particular job per hour. And it seems like nobody knows what they need to be charging per hour. They're looking at the industry standards, or they're looking at what other competitors are charging, and they're just going in at the same rate. And that is so dangerous because you have no idea why they're charging that rate. You have no idea how much you're going to get out at the end of the month or at the end of the year. And I see so many business owners working and getting to the end of the first year, doing their tax return, looking at the money going, why haven't we made enough? And this is why. So what I suggest doing is just first working out what you need to earn as an hourly rate, and then looking at the industry standards and seeing how far out you are and what would happen if you charge those rates and that kind of thing. So I've made the spreadsheet to help. If you've just found the spreadsheet on the website and downloaded it, there is a blog post, or at least there is one when I'm recording this video, which talks about what you should charge as an hourly rate. And the blog post basically covers everything in the spreadsheet. So if you use the two together, it may be quite useful for you. Also, I've just put a link to a book that I've written, which helps new business owners. So if you are a new business owner, that book, you click on the link, that may help you. There's a lot more stuff in there. Anyway, let's get started in the spreadsheet and I'll show you how it works. Company name, you can put your name or your company name, either your personal name, your business name. It doesn't really matter. It's just used for the spreadsheet. You can put in whatever you want there. And then we can move straight on. Now, the first aspect of calculating your hourly rate is deciding when you're actually going to work and when you're actually going to work on work that is actually going to be billed and paid, because there's a very, very big difference. So let's just click across here. I've already filled in some figures, but basically what you'll do is you'll see your Monday through to Sunday down here. So we're going to work on an average week. Now, this is not an exact science because you could change from week to week, but all this is meant to do is actually get you to think about what you plan to do each day and how much of this is actually going to be paid for, because then it gets you to start thinking about actually making your time more efficient and that kind of things. But it also gives you a good indication of what you're going to be paid in the year. So I've broken these down into columns. So what you can do here is each of the days, if you're not working, just leave it blank. If you are working, put in the start time when you plan to start working. That doesn't really matter, but what this does is it calculates what your end time will be based on all the work that you plan to do that day.
which is also a bit of an eye-opener, because sometimes people think they can do 12 hours of work in a day and work from 9 to 5. It doesn't work like that. So put in the start time, enter it as a time. So enter, if you're putting in it as 9 o'clock, enter 09:00 like that. If you just put in 9, if you put in 9, it'll think it's 9 days, and it's gonna give you a ridiculous value of 0. So put in as the hour, minute, put it in as the correct format. And then what you can do is, how many hours of client paid hours are you planning in doing a day? Now, I realize this is going to differ. I realize you're not always going to have work, and sometimes you're going to have more, but this is just the plan. This is what you plan to do, because then when you set out later on, you can actually have this in mind as to what you need to be achieving. So let's just say you decide you want to do 4 hours of paid client work. Now, what paid client work means is actual work that you're doing that you're going to bill for, and the client is going to pay you. Now, whether you're charging per hour or whether you're charging for a project and you've assigned a certain number of hours to that project, it doesn't matter. But as long as it's work that you're actually getting paid for. Remember, sometimes you may have to do unpaid hours for client work. So for argument's sake, you may have to have an initial consultation, or you may do the time that you take up to draw up the quote, things like that. You're not directly getting paid for. Now, if you've included that in your quote, in your price, then fine, put it down as paid hours. But if you haven't, then you need to make sure that's put down as unpaid hours. Because remember, you're not getting paid for all the work you do. You're only getting paid for the work that you're actually invoicing for. So this is what you'll be invoicing for. How many hours per day? This is other work that you do for the client that's not been invoiced for. This is business development. So things like marketing, advertising. If you have a look down here, you can see there's an instruction for each of these columns, so you can see what is you ought to be doing there. Business development are things like marketing, advertising, creating your brand, all those kind of things, all things that you're doing for the business to grow the business. Remember, you don't get paid for that stuff, and that needs to be, you need to set time aside for that, because that's vitally important. The other thing is business upkeep. So things that aren't necessarily developing the business, but they just have to be done. Accounts, your legal obligations, your, I don't know, doing terms and conditions, or all those kind of very exciting things that you get to do as a business owner that you never really anticipated at the beginning. Those things, it's good to actually think about that and think, how much time am I going to set aside for that? Because remember, typing up legal documents and things like that, you either have to outsource that stuff, but if you do it yourself, it all takes time, and it all takes time out of your day. Things like accounts and checking the banking and all that kind of stuff, it all takes time. And then you can put in allowance for other time. Now, other time can be anything else that's not one of these four. You can put in an allowance for other time. There might be something industry specific that you need to do, whatever the case may be, that you can put in there. And then lastly, but not least, the breaks. Remember, you have to take a break. You can't just work solidly throughout the day. So if you put in a time for lunches and teas and drinks breaks and whatever else you have during the day, that will come in there. Now, what that does is it says, all right, if you're going to start at 9 and you plan to work all of these hours on a Monday, you're going to end at 6:30. Is that right? Now you look at this and you go, ooh, wow, that's a bit late, or yes, I can work up to that point, or whatever the case might be. And you may look at that and go, oh, yeah, that's a bit of a problem. So then you've got to adjust these figures. And that's exactly why I've done it like this, so that you need to think about what work you're going to be doing each day. And then it tells you, if you're starting at the time you said you're going to start, that's the time you're going to end. That's how many paid hours you're doing. That's how many work hours you're doing, i.e. hours that you're not actually being paid for. Because here we can see we've got unpaid hours, development, and upkeep and other time is 4.5. So we're doing 4.5 unpaid, 4 paid, which means that the paid hour is actually 47% of the work time that we're doing. So you can see what's actually going on here. This is a typical week that you put in. Obviously, they're going to vary. That's fine. But again, this is just to give you an indication. You're never going to stick to this exactly, but it's just to give you an indication of the kind of prices you need to charge. But now we also need to take into consideration, what about leave? Are you ever going to take leave? Because we've got to take that off. Are you going to set yourself an allowance for sick leave? And what about bank holidays? Because remember, depending on where you are, especially in the UK, I mean, I think they're about, what, 10 bank holidays a year, something like that. So you're looking at 2 weeks worth of time off if you're actually just going to take bank holidays off. So I've added a few things in here. Weeks in a year, you can put how many weeks leave you want to take in a year, put them as weeks. And then you can also put in how many weeks sick leave in a year. Now, obviously, you don't know what that's going to be, but you need to put an allowance because chances are you're probably going to be sick at some point. And what about bank holidays? You can select either to work as normal or take them off. If you take them off, what it does is it just takes off 2 weeks from your year. So if you make these if you put these figures in the bottom here, what that does is it just does a general allowance for your actual time. And here I can see that actually my total per year now is 1,034 hours a year based on what I've put here and based on what I've selected at the bottom. So now it knows how many hours I'm actually going to be working in the year, where I'm actually going to be billing a client according to my schedule that I've planned. Now, again, this might not work exactly, but I'll show you later on how we can see all the different variables, all the different possibilities. But at the moment, that's stage one that you need to enter into the first tab. Second tab, what this one does is it says, what is the annual gross salary that you require? Very simple. Now, because I didn't want to do this for sole traders and another one for limited companies and so on and so forth, I've just worked it on a gross salary. So obviously, this gross salary, if you're self-employed, you'll still have to take off tax off of this. If you're a limited company, you're still going to have to take off either PAYE and national insurance, or you're going to have to take off dividends and corporation tax, whatever the case might be. This is a gross salary, not the net. So all the personal tax comes off that. Just while we're talking about tax, if you are VAT registered, when we get to the end and we see the value, the hourly rate, you need to have that as an exclusive of that price. If you're not VAT registered, then you don't need to worry about that. But this is a gross salary that you're aiming for at the end of the year. But now, not all the money you make as a business owner goes into your pocket. There are business expenses and overheads and things like that. So I've just put 1 and 2 as business overhead names. I've just thrown in some random figures. But what you need to do is think about what business expenses you're going to have. Now, that can be anything. That can be your accountant's fee every year. That can be rent, if you're renting an office or a premises. It could be whatever else the business has to pay out the business has to pay out over and above whatever salary you draw and whatever dividends or whatever else you take out. So any money you're taking out personally, the business needs to earn over and above that to cover the business expenses in order to get that money out. So what are those annual expenses? So if you list all of those, whatever they may be, and put in an annual cost. This is also a good exercise to actually do the beginning. So then you've got in your mind what your budgets are to spend on all these different things in your business, because a lot of these business costs, people just don't think about them at the beginning, and they hit them hard. So put in your annual costs. Once you've done all of that, you now know what your annual costs are going to be as a business. And you also know what your salary is going to be, needs to be, and you know how many hours you're going to be working here per year. So that would then create the report. Now, when you go to report, just double check. It says number of days working a week. This is where things have been entered. This is just for you to double check. Number of weeks a year assigned annual leave, number of business expenses assigned to business expenses, total required annual earnings, total billable hours planned with desired salary. Just double check that that's all correct. And then it gives you your hourly rate. If you work all the billable hours that you've stated, that's what you need to charge. Now, remember, this isn't an exact science. There's obviously, even just from the point of view of your time, you're not going to ever work exactly what you've got, but it's just an indication as to what you should be charging. But also, when you get that, now you may actually want to come down and go, well, actually, the industry rate is not that. Maybe the industry rate's high, maybe the industry rate's lower, but you can put in an override rate here that you can type in. And then what it does at the bottom is it just gives you the maximum amount of hours that you can work. So This is your required hourly rate, which is this rate here that it's calculated. This is, no, sorry, that's not. This is your projected salary based on that rate, sticking to the rate above. This is your projected salary based on the override rate. And this is what you need to charge per hour to reach your salary if you are working this percentage of the time. Now, when I say working, remember, it's working on stuff that you're actually billing. So what this means is if you work 100% of the time, there's the 39.94, which is that there, which is great. That's what you need to do to get your salary. If you're only working 70% of the time, then you need to charge £57.06. Now, you may not be able to just chop and change your rate depending on how much work you have, which is fine. This is just an indication to show you. But what's probably more important to you is this column here. What will happen if you charge that rate, but you're only working 80% of the billable time? Well, then that's the salary that you're going to end up drawing. And what is likely to happen if you charge this rate, the override rate, and you're only working 80% of the time? Well, that's the salary that you're going to get over the year. Now, this could fluctuate. So you could say, well, what happens if I'm working between 80 and 100%? Well, then you're going to get a salary somewhere between those three figures. So this is just an indication. As I said, please don't take this as absolute truth, because it's not. There are all sorts of things at play. There are all sorts of things that can change this. For example, things like bank holidays. This is just taking of 2 weeks, but you may actually set Mondays aside as days to do marketing, and you might do very heavy paid work on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, which means that the bank holidays don't really affect you, those kind of things. So there's all sorts of things at play. It depends when you do work. You may use weekends to catch up on work that you've missed during the week. So you may not have a problem. It might be completely different for you, but this is just a tool to get you to think about all these different aspects that you need to cover in your business, and the fact that not all of your time is charged and paid for. And then what you also got to think about are your business costs. And then you subtract those ones, divide it up, and then you can get these figures. So these should give you a much closer indication of what's actually going to happen, rather than you just thumb sucking an amount and going, let's charge that per hour because it seems like everyone else is. So I hope that that helps you. I really do, because I've seen so many people ask this question. I've seen so many people fall short with this, and I've just thought, let's just make a tool to help you out with it. If it has helped you and you want to know more, as I said, if you click on the link, you can see the book that I've written for new business owners, for growing businesses, the various formats that you can buy there. This link goes to the business website where you can have a look and see which format you want. But I hope that that's helped you, and I really do wish you all the best with planning for your business. Specifically working out your hourly rate, and I hope that this benefits you and gets you to think about what you need to know. Thank you very much, and goodbye.